good afternoon, good evening, or good morning, everyone, everywhere, depending on where and when you are joining and watching Africa Online. Well, it is a chilly, little blustery day in my neighborhood. There's no sun outside. What's it looking like in your neck of the woods? We have been discussing this month our stew. Last week we talked about the water, and we're not doing stew in order. But we know that even a cook knows that you can't make a good stew. You can have the potatoes, the meat, the carrots, and the peas, but if there is no water, there is no stew. It's just vegetables. But this week, we're going to talk about energy and electricity, which you also need to make a good stew, depending on whether you have a gas or electric stove. If you got an electric stove, you definitely need some electricity and some energy. So here's a very interesting fact that I found as we were preparing for today. The rapid growth of the rapid growth of artificial intelligence globally will cause a surge in electricity demands that will initially be met by fossil fuels, at least until nuclear power becomes the obvious solution, according to Dale Klein, the former chairman of the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission. Now, you would not even think that AI had anything to do with electricity, and electricity didn't have anything to do with AI. But here we found that it is going to cause a surge in electricity demands. What is that going to do for our children on the continent where electricity is not a steady, is not a given, and is often a commodity? It's a sought after commodity. Welcome to Africa Online TV. I am your co-host, Ambassador Prophetess Lisa Parks. And we are again talking about electricity and energy. I'd like to welcome my co-host, Professor Nia Sung, for the editorial of the day. How are you, my brother? What's the weather looking like down in your neck of the woods?
It is as blustery as it is in your neighborhood, cold, 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 and yes, quite unlike last week. But all the same, we have to live, we have to survive by His grace indeed. So here we go. Greetings and welcome. We are right in the middle of the 31-day, 12th month of the year, which is the last month of the year anyway. It is Sunday, December the 15th. That means we are midway, as I said, in December. Today is the 350th day of the year, and there are 16 days left. It is a 366-day year because it is a leap year. So we have 16 more days, and we say bye-bye 2024. Today is the 50th Sunday of 2024, on the 51 week of 2024, using US Standard Week number calculations. And we have had 85 days of fall. Ambassador Lisa, we've had 85 days. We still have 6 more to go. So the cold weather is still with us until the snow starts coming down in tons. And well, we hope that this year will be a little different. All the same, get your shovels ready, get your warm coats ready, and please be ready to live the weather as it occurs. Today is, if you did not know, Bill of Rights Day for people in the United States. The Bill of Rights, also known as the first 10 amendments to the Constitution of these United States, is observed annually in the United States and commemorates the ratification of the first 10 amendments to the United States Constitution. The National Archives documents that the many celebrations of the day, or that you can find it if you visit National Archives website. The documents are many, and of course they are celebrated as Bill of Rights Day today, the 15th of December. The Bill of Rights was introduced by James Madison, who later became the 4th president of these United States. And today the Bill of Rights Day is displayed, or rather the Bill of Rights themselves are stored, or they are displayed in the rotunda of the National Archives building in Washington, D.C. So if you come to Washington, D.C., don't go away without visiting the National Archives, where you can find the display of those Bill of Rights. As this is a reminder to all Americans of the existence of their constitutional rights. These first 10 amendments to the United States Constitution were ratified on December 15, as we already say, 1791, and the 10 amendments protect the most basic rights of all Americans, citizens and non-citizens alike, known as the Bill of Rights. And that Bill of Rights consists of notions like freedom of speech, say what you want without telling me that my nose is too short or too long, freedom of religion, worship whatever you want, however you want, freedom of press, read, write, and say what you want without, of course, telling me down, and the right to protect. Well, to protest, rather, not protect, to protest. You can go out and shout your lungs out saying that I was not right in doing what I did, and equal protection under the law. Other amendments include the right to bear arms, the Second Amendment, which many people now today are contesting because of what is happening in the country, so many shootings and so on. Well, own a gun, but not to shoot people, shoot the animals that are wild or that are threatening your life. These, of course, also include the protection against unreasonable searches and seizures and so on and so forth. Former President Franklin D. Roosevelt issued a proclamation that dedicated December 15th as Bill of Rights Day. With that in mind, we now turn to our topic of the day, the letter E in our acronym. That letter E is, of course, you heard Ambassador Lisa say, is for both energy and electricity. Two words sometimes used interchangeably. We learn from books and other research material that energy is a broader, or rather, energy, quote, is a broader concept that refers to the capacity to do work or cause change, end of quote, while the same source tells us that electricity, quote, is a specific form of energy resulting from the movement of charged particles like electrons. That still sounds like something out of this world, something difficult to understand. That notwithstanding, this Sunday, the 15th of December, we focus on the letter E in that in-house acronym STEW. We are talking energy and electricity, but emphasizing electricity because it is a vital resource that Africa highly needs, but whose supply remains desperately, haphazardly done, especially as many governments think of themselves more than of the people. A quick search for electricity in Africa tells us that as of 2020, that is 4 years ago, fossil fuels constituted the main source of electricity generated in Africa. Among renewable sources, hydropower was the leading source of electricity generation. However, such electricity generation and distribution are arguably very hampered, and the continent is lacking and virtually very poor in those domains. What is electricity? What is energy? All the same, it is you and I who can pressure the powers that be because we cannot do it by ourselves. So it is not strange to the continent for a contractor to be told to come along with their own power pack if they happen to win a contract on the continent, because the electricity supply may be as haphazard as the word haphazard itself. In this 21st century environment, wherein most activity depends on uninterrupted power supply, frequent and unscheduled power cuts are something you would want to know why they happen. Well, in Nigeria, NEPA, they say never supply power, never power. Okay, so what should be done so that electricity supply in most, if not all, of the countries in the continent can be regular on a frequent basis, so that you don't have to shut down, or you don't have to be shut down and only come on when the powers that be decide to turn it on again. So join us to discuss the letter E in our acronym STEW, that abbreviation that we pronounce as if it was a word. On that note, I turn now to co-anchor Ambassador Prophetess Lisa Parks for us to get this discussion started, or she may want to tell us some of the new faces on the screen. If not, just welcome all of us so we get the discussion going. Over to you, co-anchor Ambassador Lisa.
Thank you, Professor Niasan. Again, we want to welcome you, there in YouTube land and you on Facebook. We want to welcome our in-house guest, Sister Deborah, Dr. Gloria, and we are so happy to be here again another Sunday. And actually said, like he said, we're going to be discussing the electricity and the energy. Now, I heard you say something interesting that if a contractor wins a bid on the continent, he's instructed to bring his own electricity. Now, here in America, I've seen them building houses, and sometimes the people who are building or the contractors will bring their own generator because the house doesn't currently have power. So they bring a generator, I guess, that they hook up to their truck or whatever. But if you don't have electricity to start with, what are you expected to hook up your electricity to get power?
Well,
Yes.
you have to take the necessary measures to ensure that you come along with the pack and the connectors that you need, because you bring your generator and you know how to hook it up to whatever project you are doing.
That is so far beyond comprehension. It is crazy. Now I know that most of the generators run on gasoline or
Yeah,
fuel over there in Africa. So I guess as long as there's fuel,
there's
you can
power.
run your generator. When your generator runs out of fuel, I guess the end of the work is over until there's more fuel. That is crazy. So while we're discussing electricity and energy, it's like I said, it's just hard to expect that our sons and our daughters on the continent will have a steady electricity power. As I said in my opening, when I was talking about the increase in AI and how the increase in AI was going to be requiring a lot more demands on our electricity, and if this is global, how is AI going to be working in Africa when we can't even get our electricity just to keep the lights on in the house, just for being able to cook? How is the increase in the AI going to be affecting that issue? I wish we had some guests from Africa. If I knew that, had known this earlier, I would have been polling my family and friends to ask some questions if they had any thoughts and clues as to how AI is going to affect their electricity situation there on the continent.
Yeah, the middle ground now is solar power. Everybody is turning to solar power. So
Okay.
even in my village now, families that can afford purchase a pack through some company that is delivering those things to the continent. So they are able to download solar power, or they are able to have solar power in their homes, and they are able to survive with just that, like charging their phones and lighting up the living area in the house and so on. They don't use it to cook. They don't use it to run refrigerators. It's essentially
Okay.
charging their phones and ensuring that the living area where they are that particular moment of the day is
Right.
lit.
Okay, so they have solar power, but you're saying that solar power is not strong enough or it's not enough. Now, one thing we do know that Africa has a lot of sun. So solar
Yes,
power panels are working and will work, but you're saying it's only enough just to the essentials, like your phone and your laptop, but not enough to run your refrigerator and keep your food cold. Right.
not yet, except that particular family can afford the high voltage one, because
Oh,
they have different voltages that the dealers are selling out to the people.
oh, okay. Interesting.
You can
So
buy
I guess
Yeah,
I
you
guess.
can buy a simple one just
Mhm.
to charge your phone, charge your iPad, and then make sure that you light up your living room while you are there. And then when you go to bed, of course, everything is off till the next
Yeah.
day.
Yes, of course, when you go to bed, you don't need it. When I'm in Nigeria, when the electricity is not on, of course, we're running the generator after it gets dark. And of course, the generator can only hold so much fuel, and it's only so big. So it runs until the fuel runs out. And we're all running to charge all the phones, charge all the laptops and tablets, and at least try to cool the house off a little bit. I had an opportunity to minister this morning, and I was just talking about the different climates, you know, not to get off subject, but the different climates. Right now, it is approaching summer in South Africa while we're approaching our winter. It may be cold in Egypt while it is their winter because they're on the same um, hemisphere as we are. So they're having winter the same time we're having winter, but it's not necessarily as cold as it is here. So when your weather is all over the place, trying to have electricity is a very difficult thing. And I'm really just surprised that we haven't had more companies come to the continent to set up like to break the monopoly.
Well, governments are to blame again because some governments have put in place rules and regulations which some companies find difficult to use. I mean, to abide by. So,
Okay.
yeah, the deal is it should be something that is win-win, not rather something for just you, the beneficiary.
Exactly. We need a win-win situation in these cases. Everybody needs to be able to win. The government needs to be able to win, and so does the people. But the government has a responsibility to take care of the people. So here's another fact that I saw concerning energy. As data centers, the backbone of artificial intelligence operations are built in countries like Japan and the US. Natural gases have been necessity to have become necessities to meet surging power demands. Now, data centers are heavily reliant on energy, and the global boom for AI is pushing power grids to its limit. Again, if this is happening on a global scale with this AI, and it's pushing our power, and we know we have plenty of grids. One thing we have here is lots of electricity and lots of grids, and AI is pushing the power grids to its limit. It seems like we would be pulling back on AI until we can build bigger and better infrastructures. I believe it was Elon Musk that I saw a little while ago that had called for a halt on the development of AI. So maybe he's thinking along the same lines that I'm thinking, that we need to pull back for a second until we have everything that we need in place. At this time, we're going to call on some of our uh, usual attendees, our panel, for lack of a better term. Sister Deborah, are you there? Dr. Gloria, are you there? We want you to chime in and give us your thoughts on energy and electricity. Welcome,
Hello.
Deborah. How are you?
Yes.
I'm doing okay, thank you. Um, I don't know what we would do if all the grids failed and we didn't have electricity.
Mm,
There are a lot of people who wouldn't know what to do, where to go, or how to even get started. They're so dependent upon it. Um, I believe that they need to cut back and catch up. So
yes.
to speak. That way, we'll be in a position where we won't have to worry about it being none at all, or overloading everything and
Right.
causing other situations and other problems.
And I believe that we're on our way there, and probably a lot sooner than either you or I could possibly think. I know that at least 2 years ago, one of my classes, our naturopath doctor, began to prepare us for this type of emergency. Oh, I got some jets flying overhead. Started preparing us, talking about getting generators, getting those hand cranked radios, getting walkie talkies. And he kept saying, not if, but when. Not if our power fails, but when our power fails. So, reading some of the things I was reading to prepare for this topic, I started thinking, you know what, I better begin to put a quicker move on preparing so that I'm not in here with that. I do have a flashlight upstairs. I have one downstairs, by the sofa, one by the bed if I have to. We've been having these blackouts. I don't know about you. Now, we don't have rolling blackouts like Africa does. They have almost like scheduled rolling blackouts. In East Africa and Uganda, I know that this half of the town, they're going to turn the electricity off at 8 o'clock. So everybody is shifting to go stay with somebody else on the other side of town. And then the next day, that side of town is going to have their blackout. So everybody's shifting to come back. So it's almost like a scheduled time. We know that the electricity is going to be turned off at 8 o'clock. So you begin to do everything that you need to do so that you're not stuck, still trying to cook, trying to charge your laptops or have any kind of classes or meetings or things like that where you're going to need electricity. But we've been having these blackouts. Uh, I know my block has had at least 5 blackouts, at least once a month. We have a blackout. Sometimes they're not as long. Sometimes they go for, 20, 30, half an hour. But what, like Deborah said, what happens when all the grids begin to fail? Because we rely too heavily on them. We've got multiple laptops, we've got multiple tablets, multiple phones, we've got multiple TVs, all plugged into the electricity that our homes were not, especially if your home is a little older, your home, unless you had the electricity upgraded, was not made to cater to all these electrical devices. It was essential. You had a lamp in the living room, you had a TV in the living room, maybe you had a radio, and that was it. But now people have TVs in the living room, the dining room, the family room, the kitchen. They've got 4 and 5 phones. Every child has a phone and a laptop. So these are the things that we need to begin to be mindful of. How much electricity are we actually using? Thank you so much, Deborah, for your comments. Dr. Gloria, are you there?
I am. I'm here.
Some of your thoughts on electricity and energy. I know you've traveled around a bit, so you may have some different perspectives.
I'm really not an expert on this topic at all. I'm old school, just turn it on, turn it off type of girl. Oh, I thought my camera was on. Apologize for that. Yeah. So I'm here to learn. I'm learning a lot about the blackouts. I think my law enforcement background, I would have to say when there's an emergency, first thing that goes off is the electricity, for safety reasons. And I just think that with the cold weather, that people should be mindful of using candles and the hazards, with heaters and plugging the heaters in near curtains or mini blinds, that type of thing. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you so much. Yes, we need to be mindful of where we place our space heaters. You think, oh, it's only hot air blowing, but too much hot air, if your curtains are old, maybe they still have some fiberglass in them, these things can ignite. So we want to be mindful of where we plug our space heaters in, and make sure that when you plug it in, you don't have a whole bunch of other things plugged in. I know a space heater should not be plugged into an extension cord. Maybe a surge protector would be good, but not in a regular basic extension cord, because I don't believe the current in an electric extension cord is designed to carry the voltage that a space heater carries. Nia-san.
Yes, I'm happy that Dr. Gloria brought up that fact about being cautious about what you do with those plugins, because you never know. A fire can start. And on the continent, luckily, most of the houses are in concrete, but a good number of houses are in plank, or what they call plywood, and it can catch on fire very quickly. But so we have to be very cautious when we are using those extensions and plugins and so on, because if we don't, we may end up losing the little that we have.
Exactly.
But on the other hand, it looks like the world is turning back, even though solar energy is becoming very common. It looks like we're turning back to the earlier centuries, where we have to make do with darkness when darkness comes and light when light comes. I don't know, but I may be wrong, but we have to get used to. Our children wonder how we studied in our day. We used to use lamps. We put kerosene in the lamp, light it, put it there and read under the lamp. Or during the day, we make sure we use as much of the sunlight to do effective work as we could, because in the night was night and it was dark and you couldn't read. So many of us grew up having bad eyesight because we realized that the kerosene lamps that we were using were not the best of infrastructure. I mean, the best of supplies to use, because you use them, you pay the consequence immediately or almost immediately. So it is very, very important now to, if the discoverers or the business people can put higher investment into the solar energy. Africa has a lot of sunlight. If Africa were supplied with the necessary gadgets to empower every village to have solar power, that would be a big solution to the problems on the continent. The industries can depend on the other part of supplies like the hydroelectricity. They can depend on that, but the villages can depend on solar power. That will save the government, because government is the main builder of those of those other big power hydroelectricity supplies. But if government can rely on solar energy, it will save the people rather than them crying out every day, electricity, electricity. If they have their homes lit, if they have their telephones charged, and so on, they will not depend so much on government. Government can use the hydroelectricity for businesses, but for homes, they can decide to make sure that every home has solar power.
A little while ago, there was a movie that came out, I believe it was 2010, 2012, somewhere around there. And it was a movie about a Ugandan girl, and she became a chess master. But as she was learning, as you were saying, we used to put some kerosene in the lamp, and that's how you studied. And in the movie, it's called The Queen of Katwe. She was studying how to play chess by candlelight and by the kerosene. And sometime when her mom didn't have money for kerosene, she found a match and she would try to read by a match. I can't even imagine trying to say, we can't get our kids to study when they've got a whole house full of light. They just go in and flick it on. And here she was studying by this little kerosene lamp. And she went on to be a 3-time world chess master. The movie was put out by Walt Disney. It's called The Queen of Katwe. If you've never seen it, it is an excellent movie about what our children can do when they're given a chance and an opportunity. There's no reason why none of them cannot succeed. But those of us who have the ability to make things happen, we can empower our families on the continent. Bring them books. That's one of my thing is, I watch children are not reading for pleasure. They're not letting their mind escape. And I know this has nothing to do with electricity, but when you don't have but so much electricity, as Nia Sung said, when you had to do everything by the daylight because night was coming and there's no electricity, there's not a lot of time for sitting down and reading after you've been doing the laundry, the dishes, and everything, getting your clothes ready for school the next day, trying to iron with a little bit of sunlight that you have. But we can begin to help our children by, one, we pray. One, we petition the governments to do right by their people. Scripture says that we're supposed to pray for those in authority over us. So my constant prayer every day is for the leadership of our countries, that they would begin to do right by their people, because we've got water. Uganda has got a dam. They've got water, but somehow the dam was built incorrectly, so the electricity doesn't stay on, which causes the rolling blackouts. When it's your turn, because you hear that humming around by 7 o'clock. You hear the humming of these, it's not like a whole bunch of bees, but you begin to hear the hum of the generators getting ready to kick on. He's like, oh, time to shift. And it's just such an interesting phenomenon. I don't know what it's like on the West Coast, but I've experienced and I lived through them in Uganda, that shift to the other side of town so that you can have electricity. So I have another interesting fact about electricity. Let me find where my little fact is. And this applies to us here in the US. Natural gas is the most commonly used fuel in the US, and it is expected to account for up to 60% of new generation projects in the coming year. While natural gas is cleaner than coal, the reliance on natural gas comes with its own set of environmental concerns, particularly related to the methane emissions and long-term carbon commitments. So when we're not using electricity, a lot of homes here have gas stoves, gas for their homes. Some have electric heat and they have electric stoves. As Deborah said, what's going to happen when your stove doesn't come on because you don't have electricity? Now, a couple of years ago, I was in Nigeria and I bought my sister a stove. And I've never seen this before, but we bought a stove that was half electric and half gas. So two eyes on the stove ran by the electricity and two eyes ran by cooking gas. So when the electricity was not on, you just switched over to gas. Or when you did not have fuel, you switched over to electricity. I've not seen anything like that here in the US, but I thought that was a very interesting phenomenon that the appliances there could operate in the both areas. Have you seen that there in your country, Nia-san?
No, well, maybe they're there now, but when I left 20 years ago, none of those was available.
Are you
So,
saying you haven't been home in 20 years?
well, I've been home once in 20 years, but I did not travel the country. I just went to my village and back.
Oh.
So I don't know what prevails in other parts of the country. Yes. So,
Yeah.
but I know that solar energy is gaining ground in the villages, especially in my part of the country, because the war came and then the electricity supply had always been inconsistent. But families that can afford it are now getting solar energy to light up their families, their family homes. Yes.
But it's still cooking by on a little pot, the little eyes.
We still cook by the fireside. Firewood is still a very important source of energy for my people.
Okay, okay. So
Yes.
here's another little fact, talking about paying electric bills. Paying utility bills, including ones for electricity, is a responsibility that many Americans face. And some are having difficulty covering their electric bills every month. As we were saying earlier, you've got 4 and 5 televisions running, you've got 3 and 4 computers, laptops, everybody's charging their phones, and their electric bills are going up. If we learn to cut off some appliances, I for one have been sleeping with my bathroom light on since my children were young, because I always wanted them to be able to have light to the bathroom. Well, my boys are grown men living on their own, and I still sleep with the bathroom light on. Just this week, no, actually, it wasn't just this week, it was about a month ago. One of my sisters stayed over and she was saying, oh my God, the light from the bathroom was so annoying. And I was like, oh, never even thought about, the light that comes out. And why do I have the light on? Because it's not needed. So I now begin to start turning the light off. And even just turning that light off at night, I've seen a decrease in my electric bill. Now, of course, with the holidays coming, everybody's got their holiday lights, the Christmas trees. I've got one neighborhood here, they call it the Miracle on 13th Street. Ever since I was a child, well, at least since I was high school, they've had the whole block has been lit up for the holidays. Every home agrees to participate. I can't imagine what their bills are running like. But now it has become a South Philly tradition and a tourist spot where people come to walk the Miracle on 13th Street. I would love to ask, what does their electric bill look like in July or in January after they have had the holiday with all those lights? But nationwide, the amount of money that Americans had to pay for electricity in August, just this year, we're talking about in August, the bill was $185 on average, according to a recent release report from Lending Tree. Now, in the summer, when you've got plenty of sunlight, you got plenty of sunlight, you're outside most of the time, your electric bill should not be $200. If it's $200 in the summer, I can imagine what it's going to be in the winter when you're running your heaters and you're running your appliances and you're in the house and you're cooking more inside as opposed to being outside having your cookout and cooking on your grill. So these are some of the things that we need to be mindful of. How are we spending our money and our dollars on electricity needlessly? Every child in your house does not need to have a laptop running at the same time. And we don't need to have the television on. We need to begin to consolidate, begin to go back, near some back to family time when everybody gathered around that one television. I remember on my Sunday evenings after dinner, we were all at my grandparents' house. We had one television. Well, we had two, but one television upstairs in her bedroom. And all 12 of the grandkids, we would all gather in the bedroom to watch Walt Disney movie at 7 o'clock, provided we had not gone home to our separate homes. So when we began to come back as a family, begin to share, and I don't want to see what you want to say, I'm going to my room, we can begin to develop relationship again. We'll begin to become close again. We become family again, all around the usage or the lack of usage of so much electricity. Nair-san, you have anything you'd like to add?
Not quite, but I just want to say that we just have to make do with what we have and learn to live with what we have, because if we don't, we may one day find out that we're in total darkness, or we're in total affluence and so much light that we don't need. So unfortunately, this power, the electricity we're talking about, is not exportable. You cannot take it from the United States to Cameroon. Then we buy a generator or something like that. But buying a generator to take to Africa is expensive, it's difficult to install, and then of course you install it, you may need the gas, the gasoline that you need to run it by. If you don't have that regularly available, as happens many times, there's a lot of oil supplies from in Africa, but those things are not available to the common people. They're not in the quarters. The companies that produce the energy sell it abroad. For example, you have oil, countries produce oil, but they are poor in having that thing in the country. Electricity, gas, oil, gasoline is so expensive that only the well-to-do can afford it. So you cannot, many people don't own cars, not because they don't want to own cars, but because gasoline is so expensive.
Yes, it is.
There's no need buying a car and keeping it there as a decoration.
Exactly.
Yes.
It's almost like, I know that in Nigeria, I can speak about Nigeria because I was there and I experienced it and I lived through it. I was in Nigeria for 2.5 months, and 90% of the time I didn't have electricity in the house because they just wouldn't give it to me. However, the government still sends the family a bill every month for electricity that they don't have, and they're expected to pay it. And then when you don't pay and you don't pay on time, they come out and cut the wires. They don't just, here they may turn your gas off. There they come and cut your wires. So now you got to pay a reconnection fee, have somebody come back out and reconnect your wires. So it's easier to just pay the electric bill, even though they haven't given you any electricity. I find that just so heartbreaking. But there are
Very
different.
heartbreaking, yes. Very
It's very discouraging, and it's heartbreaking that you can't get what you need for your family, but you still have to come out of pocket and pay for something that you did not have. I don't like for paying for things that I don't have. I'm not going to pay for something that I didn't get. I'm like, excuse me, where's my? I won't use self-checkout in the markets. I've never used self-checkout, because if I'm going to use self-checkout, I need you to take some money off my bill. If I've got to do the job, then you need to be
pay me for it.
You need to
You
be
pay me for that.
yeah,
Yes.
you need to be decreasing the price here, because in the price is the cost or the salary for the cashier. So if there's no cashier, then I need to be getting that salary. So let's talk about some different types of energy. There are lots of types of energy, not just plug in that socket. Let me go back to something you were saying about buying the generator and trying to take it to Africa. Our currency is different here. Our voltage is different. So when we buy appliances here and try and take them there, now you got to buy a converter with a step down and all that stuff. My very first international trip, I went to Rome for my birthday, not knowing. I did know that the currency was different. I knew the plug was, let me say, I knew that the outlet or the part that goes in the wall was different. So I bought a converter so I could plug my curling iron in. I did not pay attention to the fact that their electricity was different. I think theirs is 220 and I think we're 110. And I plugged in my electric curlers and I blew up my room. I set my hotel room on fire. The curlers exploded, the wall exploded. Fortunately, we weren't charged for destroying the room. We didn't really destroy it, but we need to be mindful of when we're trying to buy appliances and take with us to the continent, that you need a converter that not only converts the outlet socket, but it also has to convert and step down the voltage as well.
Yes, one of the things I noticed in the United States, especially in the Washington area where I live, is that there are some shops that sell the equipment that is already stepped down or adapted 220 volts rather than the 110 volts that we have here. So you can buy the equipment already preset. So you just take it to the continent and plug it in, and it will supply your electricity.
Now, I did not know that.
No, there are places that sell equipment like that.
Oh, okay, that's
Yeah.
wonderful. I know there's a store in Uganda where if you buy appliances here and take with you, they will take the plug out of it and replace it with their plug so that it can be used without the step down and all those other things. I took Christmas lights to Nigeria my last trip because I was going to be there for December. I was all excited. The kids were all excited. I was coming and bringing Christmas decorations, and I had done the window upstairs and everything. And those lights lasted us a good maybe 10 minutes. But even without with the converter, I forgot about the voltage again. And the voltage blew up the lights. So now we had no lights, but the Christmas lights and all the things, we had everything that we needed to work the tree, but we didn't think about upstairs. So we need to be mindful that our voltage is not the same. So when you're traveling,
we have to read up on each country we're going to visit.
Exactly.
Don't just worry about water.
Exactly.
Worry more about electricity, because you may take your appliance there and it fails right on being plugged in. So always make sure that you read up on that.
Which is why I don't take people to Africa with me unless they've been prepared for a year. I tell people everywhere I go when I teach international ministries or anything like that, when I'm teaching workshop, I tell them it takes a good year to prepare, because there are a lot of things that you need to study. You need to know. You don't just say, oh, I'm going, get on the plane and go. You will be greatly disappointed and greatly surprised, so it takes a good year to prepare. So as Nia-san said, don't just worry about the water. You got to worry about the electricity and the voltage and those kind of things. If you're going to be operating your electric curlers and dryers and all those kind of things, you got to worry about voltage and the difference in our voltage. So it's already 4:45. That was a quick hour. I just want to mention some different types of electricity. I'm like Dr. Gloria. I don't have any expertise in this area, and I wish we had an expert online, but we're just having a conversation. So there's mechanical energy, there's thermal energy, there's kinetic energy, there's fossil fuels. And I thought that was interesting that there were so many types of fuels. I didn't know. I just thought energy was energy. But, our body produces a different type of energy, and the energy that our body produces cannot be used to charge up your appliances. So we need to know about the different types of energy that they have or that we have. I think at 4:45 near sun, we should perhaps be getting ready to play our anthem, and then we will come back with our announcements, because we're only doing an hour show today.
Yes. Before we do that, let me just say that electricity supply, production and supply in Africa is rated like this. South Africa is the leading country producing the greatest amount of electricity, but internationally they are number 22, but they are the first on the continent of Africa. Egypt is second, number 23 globally, internationally. Algeria, Morocco, Nigeria. That is the order, the first 5 countries with the greatest amount of electricity that they generate. South Africa, recently there have been a lot of outages. Why? We don't know. Nigeria, of course, we know is permanently always NEPA. The electricity supply is as haphazard as anything else. I've not heard so much about Algeria, Egypt, and Morocco. Those are countries on the Mediterranean seaboard. Nigeria, of course, we know. And then Cameroon, of course, is a different story. It's a different story. When the country was bilingual United Republic or Federal Republic, West Cameroon had its own power supply that was never failing. But once we became United Republic and then Republic of Cameroon, the electricity supply was centralized, and of course, distribution became a problem. And today we have a lot of energy problems. In the recent months, I understand that the price of gasoline is going up almost triple to what it used to be, and people are beginning to wonder whether they are really an oil-producing country. Cameroon is an oil-producing country, but unfortunately, most of the oil produced is sold abroad, sometimes right up from the ocean where it is produced. So that is a big problem. We don't do politics on this program, but people will say that is politics. I should leave that to politicians. But then we have to know what prevails on the continent.
Now, you said South Africa was #1 on the continent in producing electricity. Do they have their own? Are they importing electricity, or are they producing their own? Do you know?
I understand they produce their own.
Okay.
Yes.
You know, I was sharing this morning when I was ministering, and I was talking about how we went to South Africa from Kenya, where we were short sleeve shorts and sandals, and assuming that all of Africa was the same weather and temperature. And when we stepped off that plane, we were freezing because it's winter when it's summer everywhere else. It's winter for them, and we did not know that. So there we are freezing, but our hotel provided us each room with a big space heater. And when you say that they have, they're #1 on the continent, it just took me back to thinking about those hotel rooms that we were in that had the big heaters for us, because we just were not prepared for winter. And we were glad that we were stepping out of the hotel, right into the cars with heat, right into the church. So we weren't out and about in the, shopping around and doing all those kind of things without having coats. And so they have, and I didn't see a generator anywhere. I know I've stayed in hotels in Nigeria. I've stayed in hotels in Kenya where the electricity will go out and the generator has to kick on even in the hotel. But I don't recall not one generator while I was in South Africa at all. So it's 5:50. We're going to.
I see Dr. Gloria's hand is up.
Oh, sure. I can't see her, but Dr. Gloria?
Unmute, Dr. Gloria. Unmute. You're still not muted. You're still not unmuted, please. Unmute before you speak. Uh-oh, there's something wrong.
Yeah, she's unmuted, but
What's that?
There you go.
There you go. Better now.
Okay. All right. Oh, I just wanted to say about the generator, since we're on that topic right now, that unfortunately, I don't know anything good about generators unless someone is a generator expert. I wouldn't suggest a generator. I won't even purchase one because I'm not an expert. And one of my people that I know, she used to own a store, and I would walk in her store. She have Christian music going, and she's always talking about the Lord. Anyway, so it snowed. As I was telling you guys how the electricity goes out in a lot of areas when it just snows. Anyway, she had a generator, and her husband and her dog and her, were in a snowstorm, the same snowstorm everyone else was in, and a tree fell on their garage. And so they put the generator between the garage and their door, and somehow the door shut with the generator on the inside of their house. So obviously they didn't make it. Just like even little small details like that are so important. I used to work for the fire department as well. And yeah, people really need to be careful. Now, as far as other countries, Professor, you mentioned like Morocco and those other countries. When I've traveled to France a number of times, And the first time that I traveled there, in the airport, I realized, okay, there's going to be a different plug that I'm going to need to plug in my laptop.
Mhm.
So at the airport, guys, they do sell a lot of the European adapters that can be used in China, can be used in Morocco. It's like a universal one.
Right.
Now, and they only cost like $30 at the supermarkets, but in the airport, I think they cost like 50, because airport charges a little bit more. And also, before we go to the commercial, I mean to the promotional advertisement. When I traveled to Colombia, I noticed that the electricians are like regular people like us,
Mhm.
and they are experts, and they just and I guess in Colombia it's okay to connect the electricity, because what they do over there in Bogota and Medellin is they like how your neighbors, no offense to anybody, but a lot of our neighbors are really smart and they know how to hook up the electricity. So they let people in Colombia move it like an apartment. You do your own apartment. You do your, like, if you're gonna move in, Ambassador Lisa, now don't take my word for it, but this is what I noticed, that the people that is going to move in an apartment, they do all the electricity and their wiring. Because the apartment we were staying in, when I went to the microwave, and you know how you just, in America, you just yank on the microwave door and slam it and all that. Well, the microwave came out in my lap. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And so I told the other people in the apartment, and they just looked at me like they didn't believe me. I'm like, hey guys, watch out for the microwave and anything electric, because it can come out, because they just put it in there because they know, I guess they'll get to it later, or maybe they're testing it out, or I don't know. Maybe
Wow.
it's just how they do it, because they're not heavily regulated like us.
Right.
So I think the answer to my question is what you were talking about earlier, Ambassador Lisa, Prophetess Lisa, is that why isn't the government, and I think you alluded to it as well, Professor Nielsen, why isn't the government more involved in solar and all different types of electricity? That would just make so much more sense, instead of dumbing it down, excuse my language, but building up our infrastructure. I know so many candidates are always talking about what they would like to do, but no one ever puts it into fruition. So, anyways, that's my story, and thanks for listening, everyone.
Thank you, Dr. Gloria, for
Thank you
chiming
very much. Thank you very much. Yes.
And
Is Sister Deborah still there? We're not doing the last round yet, but I only see her sign, but I don't see her.
I'm still here.
If you have any thought to share before we get to the rounding up later, you say it now at this point before Ambassador Lisa plays the anthem.
No, you can go on with the song.
Okay, all right, no problem. Yeah, Ambassador, please. You were going to say something about.
what is our topic for next week? Because we're going to do that with the song.
The acronym, no, we have not touched all the letters, so the T has to come in next week. The T for transport and telecommunications. So we're going to look at the T in our acronym, in our in-house acronym, which stands for transport and transportation. We will see what we can do about that next Sunday.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Yeah.
So we want to thank everyone for joining us today. We hope this conversation has been interesting and edifying to you. Whether you're watching the replay on YouTube or Facebook, we thank you for joining Africa Online. Again, you can find us every Sunday from 4 to 5:30, 4 to 5 sometime, but it's always Eastern Standard Time. use the time zone converter, thetimezoneconverter.com, to find out what time we're on in your area. Feel free to join us on Zoom, join the conversation. We look forward to having you, and we thank you. We also want you to go on and like and subscribe to both our Facebook and our YouTube pages as well. And we're going to say goodbye and close out with our anthem.
Thank you so very much. Have a blessed week. Ambassador, okay, yeah, there it's buffering. Okay, there we go. Thank you.
Africa. Oh no. Africans, Africans for Africa. 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 Africans have many bright ideas. If only you let us share. If you really want to know my history, please come, sit down, listen to my story. God gave us a wisdom. He guides our footsteps, makes us shine and transform. Hey, as one people, with so many cultures, yet indeed we are one. Stand up, Africans, let's save Africa. Let us all unite behind Africa Online Media Corporation. Stand up, Africans, let's save Africa. It's time to come together, promote awareness, progress, and solution. Hey. Africans, Africans for Africa. Africans, Africans for Africa. Africans, Africans for Africa. All Africans can rally for a common cause, to believe without judgment in what our brother does. To identify and resolve our challenges, to allow each other's ideas without regard to standards. As one people with so many cultures, yes indeed we are one. Stand up, Africans, for Africa. Let us solve all the problems plaguing our continent. Stand up, Africans, let's save Africa. Let us empower Africans in and out of Africa. Stand up, Africans, for Africa. Africa Online Media Corporation, that's a good way to start. Stand up, Africans, let's save Africa. They have all the resources we need to benefit our society. Oh. Education for everyone. If we believe prosperity for Africans. If we believe medical facilitation for Africans. If we believe stand up, Africa, yes, for Africa. Africa Online Media Corporation, that's a good way to start. Stand up, Africans, let's save Africa. Africa is a cradle of civilization, the motherland. Africa. We were enslaved not because we were weak, but because of our hospitality. Stand up, Africans. Let's save Africa. Jump on the Africa Online Miracle Jet. Don't be left behind. Stand up, Africans, for Africa. Together we shall succeed. Together we will win. Stand up, Africans. Let's save Africa. We are writing our own story, the truth, and we shall tell it to the world. Stand up, Africans, for Africa. No more lies. Africans own Africa.
No more lies. Africans own Africa. Again, we thank you so much for joining us here at at Africa Online TV. Good night, good morning, good afternoon. Enjoy the rest of your week.
Thank you so much. Bye for